what is this, episode 5, I think?
Episode 5, yep.
CPTv. We are happy to be here tonight, and just wanted to check in and go over a few things like we normally do at the beginning of the sort of episode here. We're really excited for our guests. We can't wait to introduce them, share everything that they have and have been sort of planning up for tonight. And we also have a really, really cool tool or resource for everybody who is attending. So we can't wait to sort of give that out to everybody as well. I just wanted to start, and I'm pretty, I feel like I've had a first and a second for this weekend, so I wanted to share those really quick. First, I just had to talk with Dominic, or we just had to talk with Dominic about what the governor, which is what we're teaching him, sort of planned for the school year. And that was definitely a first. And as a 5-year-old, to tell him that he's not going to be having school next week, or not just next week, and for the rest of the school year, it was a good conversation, because I'm sure his teachers will be telling him about that tomorrow morning on their morning meeting. But it was definitely a first, and we turned it into a win and talked about everything we can plan for. So that was good. What about you, Joe?
Let's see. First, I think, so this was my second trip to the grocery store in the last 2 weeks. And last week, I was the guy realizing I was going down the wrong way on the aisle and just like turned around and started walking backwards. So my first is now, I nailed it today. Like, I was the correct direction, all the aisles. So yeah. And then just, awesome weekend weather-wise. And we had a lot of fun with the kids outside. So
I know. I feel like I could say, well, now I'm a pro garage cleaner outer. If anybody needs it, I've done 2 garages in 2 weekends. So I'm really the queen of sort of sweeping, shoveling, and pressure washing. So I'm happy that some of these things are coming out of this. But we wanted to get right into our guests. I realize the sun is setting, so my natural light is dead. I'm going to have to get up in a second here. But we have 2 board-certified registered dietitians, both Tiffany Ma and Mike Perkins. They own an online nutrition consulting business focused on general wellness, weight management, and sports nutrition. They are just so they're experts in their field. And also, Mike is a full-time employee as a public health nutritionist with the New York State Department of Health, and is currently down at Javits Center in New York City. So let me bring them on here. And we can't wait to get talking with them. Welcome, Tiffany and Mike. Thank you.
Hi.
Hello. Hey, guys. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday to you, too. I can't really.
So I can't see Mike. Is he on the call?
Mike is on. All right. And this is perfect time. This is how we sort of work out these glitches. So if one of you wants to edit off and come right back on, we'll see how that could work. So
I'll go ahead and do it.
Okay, go ahead. Try it out.
And so you can see me and hear me okay for now?
Yeah, you're good.
Excellent. So yeah, I was just going to say, Sunday night, sometimes the days are blending together, right? So you forget what day it is. But Sunday it is.
I've heard a lot of Groundhog Day references. So
yes. So yeah. That's like probably my dad's favorite saying right now is we're in Groundhog Day.
How are you, Tiff? You back on?
Yes, I can hear everybody and see everybody.
Awesome. All right, good. Well, and as I sort of mentioned, and thank you guys, we always sort of say we know that at time now, although everybody says they have a lot of time, I still find that I'm, certainly busy, and there's still a lot of different avenues or platforms that we're getting back to so thank you guys so much for coming and preparing everything you did. I can't wait to get into some of the stuff you've talked about.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, very excited to be here.
So one thing we just wanted to start this off is, why don't you give us a background? I know I'm already seeing in the comments we have a couple soon-to-be RDs who are joining us right now. So hi, Mason. Hi. Who else? Maddie. Hi, Maddie. So why don't you give us a little background of your how you got to this point?
Sure. Mike, do you want to go ahead and start?
Sure. So so I have been a registered dietitian for about 2.5 years now. I became board certified in, October of 2017. So I did 4 years at SUNY Oneonta. I have my bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics. And part of becoming a registered dietitian is you have to do a 1,200 hour like internship or residency where you kind of get your feet wet in all types of dietetics, so clinical dietetics, community dietetics, sports nutrition, tons of stuff. So I did that right after through SUNY Oneonta as well, and got my master's degree through them in nutrition and dietetics. And that's kind of where I am here today. And the big part of how I got into nutrition and dietetics is because I was an athlete in high school. And once I kind of figured out how much nutrition plays a positive role in your performance or improving your performance, I was kind of hooked on that. So that's kind of where my short story for now.
Yeah, so I have a very similar story to Mike. I was an athlete in high school. I was captain for the girls' cross country team. And being captain, I had so many different questions for my teammates about nutrition. And at the time, I really didn't know too much. And so I kind of did like my own research in that sense. And I just fell in love with it. The fact that, you can eat certain foods to perform better just resonated so much with me. So Mike and I actually met in undergrad in Oneonta and kind of had the same journey from there. Completed the 1,200-hour residency in New Hampshire, actually, and then sat down for my board certified exam in the fall. And then I also worked at the Department of Health for a little bit. But currently I am 100% in charge of our business at this point. But we both kind of see clients as well with our online nutrition consulting business.
That's awesome. Similar path to Joe and I both, fallen in love with the field of physical therapy at the same place at Ithaca College. And there's so many things that you just know you did similar steps together. So your brain and the practices that you do are similar because of your undergrad training and especially with the Department of Health.
You guys are getting a lot of Oneonta love too. There's a lot of Oneonta alumni.
Oh,
yeah. Go Red Dragons.
I will say too, I did part of my internship in Troy. So go Troy. Big Troy.
Awesome. So, let's talk about, Tiffany, and this is one of the coolest things that has happened. Obviously, nutrition and dietitians, you can seek and help the community in several different ways. And when I got the email from you, like, hey, we've been watching CPTv and we've got some different things that we can teach your audience. Immediately, I was like, sold. And because it is, you've got, such a different avenue of strengths there. So what do you want to go over? Or what would you say is some of the bullet points that you want to just give out to everybody, let everybody know?
Sure. So I think that like my whole goal in like reaching out to you was realizing that being able to formulate and like understand that nutrition has such an impact on our lives, and understanding that your audience too seeks out, they're going to physical therapy, so they're seeking out betterment in their lives, right? So I feel like at that point, like a lot of your audience would like to know how to improve their lives in that sense. And like I had said, like we all eat. Nutrition is so important for all of us. So that was my whole goal. But if you like, I can go ahead and go through some of the bullet points that I think that we can go over today.
Yeah, let's just start like right in the beginning. So, the biggest thing there is immune system. We're hearing that's a buzzword, right? And I think that we talk about fitness and health and mindfulness, and we certainly the nutrition piece of it. Definitely, why don't we just start there? Because we are all thinking of ways to build our immune system and to just try to do everything we can. And if it's through what we're consuming, please tell us.
Excellent. So I'm going to quickly talk about kind of ways to maintain a healthy immune system through nutrition, as well as maybe a couple lifestyle factors too. And so, one thing that I just want to quickly point out is the buzzword of boost your immune system, right? We kind of always hear that, boost your immune system. And I just want to put it out there from a professional standpoint that there's really no way to boost your immune system through food, and really other ways too. There's really no scientifically proven direct links between nutrition or lifestyle and an enhanced immune system. However, in order to maintain a healthy immune system, doing some of the things that we're going to talk about today will definitely help with that. With that being said, nutrition and exercise are both at the forefront of research when it comes to figuring out different ways to maintain a healthy immune system. So probably one of the biggest pieces is eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables. We always hear that. Our parents tell us, eat those fruits and vegetables, but sometimes it just doesn't seem to stick. And Tiffany will be getting into the exact recommendations for daily fruits and vegetable intake and kind of what some portions might look like, because I know it's sometimes different fruits and different vegetables have different portion sizes, just different ways of cooking them and all that as well.
You guys will be so proud. My son, sometimes we're gluten free over here, and he's got these hexagons, Crunch Master crackers or rice crackers. He can eat a whole bag. There's 3.5 servings in the whole bag. So now he counts out 14 crackers. I was in the past 2 weeks. So that's one thing that I was like, wow, we never followed that before, but the information's right there.
Excellent. Yeah. And I know Tiff might talk a little bit more about portions and whatnot, but that's such a big piece of, eating healthy, or just, eating right, is making sure that you're eating the correct portions and reading the nutrition label and all of that. So that's excellent. When it comes to eating fruits and vegetables, one thing I wanted to mention was just the simple tip of eating a rainbow, as we say, and as we tell some of our clients, which just means eating different fruits, because different fruits and vegetables have different antioxidant properties and different phytonutrients and big buzzwords like that. But it just comes down to, rather than maybe having just bananas and apples, maybe trying out different things like bell peppers and kiwis and strawberries and all these different fruits and vegetables. And I know right down in Troy, we have our excellent farmers market, right? And who knows what's going to happen with that, unfortunately. But a farmers market is a great way to kind of find new fruits and vegetables that you might enjoy.
I just heard from a patient, the farmers market is actually still going. You can order online, they'll drop it off in your trunk or something like that. So it really is a great resource. We have the farmers market down there.
Yeah, I actually get notifications from them, and it looks like they set up an online system where you can select the farmer or the vendor and then select what items you want.
Really cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the local places where people try to choose really healthy, organic, locally grown. So to have that not being fully accessible, it's great that it's even partially acceptable. Now just using the means of, trying to order it online. But it's great that so many companies are trying to do that.
Yeah.
Definitely, for sure. So, I didn't want to get into too much detail in terms of like all the different vitamins and minerals that we can consume to help maintain a healthy immune system. But I wanted to just touch on 3 really quick. The big one that we hear all the time, right? Vitamin C, and then zinc, and iron as well. So those are 3 big nutrients that, if we're getting enough in our diet, it can definitely help us to maintain a healthy immune system. So, some foods that are 3 foods that are rich in vitamin C, red and green bell peppers, very rich in vitamin C, and they're great to cook with. You can cook with them and have them warm, or just snack on them and have them cold. Kiwi fruits and fresh strawberries. Those are not the top 3, but those are 3 very rich vitamin C resources. And one note that I wanted to make is that supplementing with vitamin C is not necessarily helpful if you're already getting enough through the diet. So you might, hear or see different marketing tactics or advertisements where they're promoting vitamin C supplementation, but it's actually really easy to get enough vitamin C through the diet, easily through those fruits that I just mentioned, or even having oranges or orange juice. You see 100% orange juice, and sometimes what that means is that you get 100% of what you need through that glass of orange juice.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, it's different for certain people, different for men and women and all that, but that's just a little tip right there.
So let me know, Mike, I'm going to recap that. I'm typing it out here. So the top 3 immune maintaining nutrition or supplements would be vitamin C. What were the other 2?
And the other 2 are zinc and iron. So they're not, I wouldn't necessarily say they're the top, but they're just very important because there are other nutrients as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. I love how you worded that, Mike, that if you jump back a little bit and it's maintaining your immune system as opposed to boosting. And we talk about that all the time with the human body and how we call it your gaslight indicators and how do you maintain your movement over time. So I love that. I feel like a lot of times, as humans, we get in this kind of reactive state where we're looking for the quick fix and we want that quick boost, right? So I love that maintain your immune system. That's awesome.
Yeah, like what about emergency? Obviously, that's just a vitamin C. You know, I think of several family members who are stuck on some of these quick. So what do you think about that supplement?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And so, that's one of those supplements that are aimed at, well, sometimes they aim it at like when you're sick, you should take the emergency, right? But there's actually really no strong evidence, scientific evidence that shows that once you're sick, supplementing with vitamin C actually decreases the length of the common cold. So really, if you're getting enough vitamin C in your diet before you get sick, that's going to have a bigger benefit than you supplementing with vitamin C while you're sick.
Yeah, like you kind of want to think of vitamin C and all the other nutrients that Mike had spoken about as preventive strategies rather than intervention strategies, right? So that's how kind of like how vitamins work in that sense and how they do have the immune maintaining effects on our bodies.
Love that.
Yeah, but that's a great question. And then just really quickly, I don't want to stick on this topic too long because I know Tiff has some really great insight as well. But so zinc, really quick, to get enough zinc in your diet, foods like beef, beans, and fortified breakfast cereals, and trying to get in about like 10 milligrams per day. And if you look at that nutrition label, you'll be able to see how many milligrams might be in some of these foods, or try a quick search online. And then iron, foods like beans, lentils, spinach, and fortified cereals as well. And men need about 8 to 10 milligrams of iron, where women need about 18 milligrams, so almost double.
That's great.
Yeah.
At the end of this, you could maybe give us, because I'm trying to type over here and I think I'd rather listen. So do you think some of this you could send to us? Because I know we email this to everybody afterwards, but some of these foods and breakdowns, I would love your outline because I want it for myself.
Sure. Yeah, I can definitely do that. That would be quite easy.
Good.
Yeah. So, and then just one more quick one that I wanted to mention was foods that are kind of called alliums. So the two that are that we might be most familiar with are onions and garlic. And so they both have antimicrobial properties. So eating maybe like a clove or maybe up to 3 cloves of garlic per day, maybe not eating like this, right? Or you're going to have to walk around with a pack of gum every day, but cooking it up. And then same thing with onions, right? You can cook up your yellow onions or you can chop up, red onions and put it in a salad. But those, both of those have antimicrobial properties, and those are really good as well at helping you maintain a healthy immune system. So those are really my quick tips, I guess. Tiff, did you have anything else you wanted to mention on that topic?
No, I think you covered it. Those are some solid points.
Excellent.
What's so cool is those foods and some of those things are foreign to a lot of our households. And realistically, they're not, because I know we're going to get into fruits and veggies with you, Tiff, but that's, even just reading those or you telling us some of the foods that are rich in those different categories can be so helpful just for us to grab at the grocery store or to sort of add in after this. So, no, that's awesome.
I had a quick question.
Ooh.
So the garlic, right?
Yeah.
Italian, love our garlic.
Sure.
Is there a big difference between, say, a garlic powder and fresh garlic? I'm assuming yes, but I guess I'm just, throwing it out there.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm not like completely positive on this, but I'm pretty sure that the whole garlic pretty much has 100% more of the properties that I just spoke about versus the garlic powder. The garlic powder is very processed, and it's really just more for a seasoning versus the actual garlic, which is considered a whole food, and that has those properties in it still, and it wasn't processed into the powder. So yeah, I would say definitely in terms of that, the research is all done on the whole garlic itself rather than the powder. But powder is definitely an excellent way to quickly season up some veggies and eat more of them, right?
There you go.
Season the garlic with the garlic powder, huh?
Hey, there you go. You might find me doing that.
Yeah, we love garlic too. Mm-hmm.
All right, well, great. Thank you, Mike. Though the immune maintaining Nutrients, we got it. So why don't we maybe move on? I don't know if you want to go on to some of the next sort of points we're going to make here, but some recommendations for the fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and talk about that. So Erin, like you were saying, it can seem so intimidating, right? To so many people, just getting enough fruits and vegetables throughout the day. So we know that the dietary guidelines for Americans, the recommendation for fruits and vegetables are different. So for fruits specifically, we're looking at 2 to 3 servings per day. And so that's usually 1 cup, usually half a cup or 1 cup equals 1 serving. And then for vegetables, that's 4 to 5 servings a day. So you're thinking that's about, I don't know, maybe like 8 to 9 pieces of fruit and veggies throughout the day. And it can seem like a lot at first. But we always like to tell our clients and to, everybody that if you just try and focus on 2 ways to implement more fruits and veggies, it can be very seamless. Do you guys have any ways that you like to eat your fruits and veggies throughout the day? Before I give you these 2 little tips.
So we were on the fruit smoothie kick for breakfast. And so that was a way that we were using to try to, we talk about like little habits and that. And so we were prepping those smoothies and getting more fruits than we were previously through that method.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, that was actually going to be, well, that's actually one of the tips that I do have. And that's starting your day early with a fruit or vegetable. Because when you start your day early with a fruit or vegetable, you're just more, you kind of have that momentum to keep going on. And so, like I said, 2 to 3 servings of fruit is recommended, and then 4 to 5 servings of vegetables. And so when you start in the morning, you're able to at least get 1 serving down, right? And then kind of thinking of other ways to eat your fruits and vegetables. And so I like to ask people to take a step back and think about your day as a whole and think about trying to add in a fruit or vegetable at each meal. So if you're someone that has the time to, maybe make some breakfast in the morning and maybe make some eggs, a really great way to add in a vegetable is making scrambled eggs with a cup of spinach. And bam, you already have 1 serving of vegetables down. And then another tip that we have is trying to include fruits and vegetables as snacks. So when you're thinking about sliced cucumbers and sliced bell peppers, and they may not be as fulfilling as maybe whatever you gravitate normally as a snack, but having them in conjunction would be really, really helpful, and it'll help you get down to the servings that are recommended.
Those are great tips. Those are really, really great tips. And I love the, adding it in quickly to your scrambled eggs. Yeah, we had and it's probably applicable right now. So Barb had asked the question, any strategies for people that might be on a smaller budget? So maybe lower income, instead of not being able to get to the farmer's market. Any strategies that you have, cost saving measures to still get these fruits and veggies in?
Oh, Barb, that's a great question. My favorite question so far. So yeah, with fruits and veggies, a lot of people seem to think that fresh is better, but that's not necessarily true. A lot of our frozen and processed vegetables and fruits are just as equally as nutritious. The only thing that I would ask, people to be mindful of is that packaged fruits or frozen veggies, they just may have a little more sodium in there and sugar. So, you want to rinse off if you're getting jarred vegetables, you want to rinse off the syrup that it may come in. And then with frozen veggies, they don't even have any type of preservatives for the most part, any salt. So that's it's nutritious. But yeah, I was looking at, because in the guide that we'll be talking about in a little bit, we have I made a little tidbit on there on the differences, and I looked at the research, and really there's no research that says that fresh fruits and vegetables are better. So I will always say frozen and packaged and processed really is fine. But like I said, just for those who may be wanting to look out for their sodium intake and whatnot, that's something to just be mindful of. Just rinsing and draining any sodium in there in your canned or fruits and vegetables.
I was gonna just plug it, but Barb, where did Joe go? He'll be back. You guys are all gonna get an awesome 55-page, easiest read. I read it this morning. If you all know, Joe reads several books. For me, sometimes it's a little bit more of a challenge. I'm a little bit more of an audio or visual. So Tiffany sent me her 55-page resource. It's called Nutrition for Mind and Nourishment During Isolation. I read the whole thing this morning while the kids were outside after we had breakfast. And in it, it has so many different breakdowns of the meal planning and utilizing jarred foods, and it goes over that, Barb. So you guys are all going to get that. That was our little surprise, but we'll tell. I can't hold surprises anyway. Everybody, we're going to send the link that you can all sort of get it. It's a free resource guide. I loved it, but definitely a good question.
Yes, great question.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say a quick fun fact about frozen fruits or vegetables is that they're typically frozen directly when they're picked. So the farmer uses a method where they pick them and then they bring them right to wherever they freeze, and they freeze usually within about 30 minutes to an hour. So sometimes the frozen produce that you get is going to be much fresher than, the banana or the orange that you get from the grocery store that's been sitting on the truck and, has been sitting around at the grocery store. Not to say that the fresh isn't better, but just to always say, don't knock the frozen and the canned stuff, because it's pretty good.
I love that. I think the majority of us, if you were to guess, like if we had to say, what do you think is more, I guarantee 99% of us on here would think that we would maybe lose nutrients in jarred or frozen goods. So thank you for clearing that up for sure. Anything else, Tiffany, specifically to that sort of topic?
No, I think that we covered it for the most part. Yeah.
Okay, great. And guys, everyone who's watching, feel free shoot in some questions. It's we do have a lot of different concepts and bullet points and knowledge bombs, if you will, that we're going to go over. But it's super helpful to know what you guys are thinking too, or what you're wondering. We have a couple of vegetarians who are listening, and they mentioned that this is helpful. So we're not going to be talking about vegetarian right now, Barb, because we're jumping into some proteins. Well, but there could be some.
Sure,
yes. All right, there we go. So why don't we move on to learning a little bit more about protein and fiber?
Sure, definitely. And I'm sure maybe Tiff in a little bit will quickly talk about how she is a vegetarian transitioning to being a vegan.
Really?
So she has a ton of great tips if anyone has any specific questions on vegetarian or veganism. Mm-hmm. And she's very seasoned in it, over 10 years.
Let's go right into that. I think that's interesting. So how long have you either been a vegetarian, and what made you switch to vegan or try, switching to vegan?
Yeah, so I've been a vegetarian for like 8 to 10 years. Okay. And then I started eating fish. So I started getting seafood into my diet. So then I became a pescatarian. But now recently, maybe within the last 2 weeks, I've switched completely to a vegan diet. So yeah, my journey began so long ago, it feels like. But a lot of it had to do with just animal activism in that sense. Yep. And over time, there are so many great reasons to just eat less meat. But, starting school, I learned more about nutrition and how important it was to eat plants. So over time, it switched to kind of like, animal activism, and then nutrition impact, and then over to also environmental impact too. So we know that, less meat means, there's less waste into our environment. So it's a combination of all three. But yeah, recently, like within 2 weeks, I've switched completely. So I can definitely answer some questions if there are any.
And we're going to give all of your Instagram information and your websites for everybody who's listening. I, definitely the part on, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. How about gluten? So Mike McLaughlin just asked there. So do you also consume? So gluten is something that you are able to have, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. As a vegan.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's something that now that we have 2 celiac, actually 3 in our immediate family. That's something that's like a very common term that people are wondering sort of what it is and how to abide by a gluten-free diet. But now we're so lucky that Dominic was diagnosed at 3 years old, celiac disease. And so we have so many resources and restaurants that are friendly to that diet or that disease. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. There's so many different options, more so than it has been in the past, for sure.
All right, so for
Yeah,
us
definitely.
meat eaters out there, I wanted to get a little bit in how the protein can how you roll that into the diet. Oh,
Excellent. Yeah. So, so I just want to touch a little bit on protein, especially since I know a lot of the people watching are, in physical therapy, or maybe they were, or they're into fitness, and kind of how that ties in, but also how eating protein ties into just our daily lives. And I was going to touch just a little bit on fiber as well. So, when a lot of people hear the word protein, I feel like they automatically think supplements, right? So protein powders, protein bars, protein shakes, right? But the truth is, most people, even active people, can get their daily protein needs through food, through whole foods. And just real quick, Joe, how you doing? You back with us here?
I don't know, man. This was my plan B, and I might have to go to plan C here.
We can hear you and see you, so that's a good thing.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm glad I've held in for this long and I haven't come out yet. So, but and just real quick on the importance of protein. It's really important because the body uses it to build and repair muscle tissue. So people who are, let's say, getting physical therapy done, or working out, or functioning in sports, you're breaking down your muscles, and your muscles are rebuilding. And part of that process is getting in enough protein and enough amino acids to rebuild so that they can grow stronger, and you can continue to work towards your goals. Some other functions also just include overall growth and development. So for kids or adolescents, hair and fingernail growth, hormone function, immune system maintenance. There's that buzzword again, not boosting, but maintenance, and even red blood cell repair. So those are just a few ways that protein really helps. And one thing to keep in mind is that protein is an essential nutrient. So that means that our body can't make all the amino acids that it needs. And so if you don't get enough in through your diet, your body starts to break down your muscle tissue. So, if you worked hard, or you're working in physical therapy, and you're breaking down your muscle tissue, but not eating enough protein, you could be causing a little bit more harm than good. So, what I recommend is to try and eat a little bit of protein at every meal. The general recommendation at meal times is between like 2 and 4 ounces for healthy adults. And as a visual guide, one fist is about like 3 to 4 ounces per se. So that's a good guide to, when you're eating protein or picking different types of protein foods. Another little visual guide is that if you have a normal size plate, and cut it into 4s, 1/4 should be filled up with a protein-rich food. So any quick questions on protein before I kind of get into protein foods?
For me, I'm following.
Yeah, excellent. Maybe we'll have a couple of viewers ask a little bit about protein. So protein-rich foods, right? We have meat, poultry, dairy, eggs, fish. And then we have some of our, so those are our meat-based, and then we have plant-based protein sources, which are just as good as meat-based protein sources. Things like tofu, seitan, beans, peanut butter, and nuts. And those are just a few. Also whole grain. So you don't just get protein through those foods, you also get protein through different types of grains, pastas, breads, things like that. And we're just talking about gluten. Now, gluten is rich protein, so not everyone can have some of those foods. But a really, really good protein source for vegans or vegetarians is seitan, which is made from wheat gluten, basically. That's just my quick little tidbit about protein, trying to get it in throughout the day. Just a general recommendation could be between like 65 and maybe 75 grams per day. However, everyone is very different in terms of their protein intake. A very active athlete, especially a strength athlete or a triathlete, will need a lot more protein than just someone who is, pretty much general or a fitness enthusiast, or maybe getting some physical therapy. So you don't think that you have to eat all this protein and drink protein shakes and eat protein bars, because that's usually not the case. Usually through 3 solid meals, like I said, if you're using your fist as a guide, you can get in enough protein, and through snacks as well.
Did you say, Mike, so I think a lot of people, when we hear protein, we think our mind, at least mine, goes immediately to meat protein. So I love that you listed those other things. Is that, so the 2 ounces per meal, is that what you said, a good goal to shoot for? 2
so
ounces?
Between like 2 and 4 ounces. So I would say maybe at breakfast, which if that's a smaller meal for people, maybe more in like 2 to 3 ounces. But for lunch and dinner, maybe closer to like that 3 to 4 ounces.
Yeah, that's perfect. And you can mix that up between the different protein sources too to kind of balance things out, right?
Exactly. Yep. And we definitely encourage people to try the vegetarian options. So if you don't want to eat meat at every meal, you can definitely try one of the other options to just mix things up for sure. Because like I said, when it comes to protein, as long as you're getting in the essential amino acids, which I'm not going to get into too much here, but both meat and plant sources have those essential amino acids.
Well,
So maybe,
no,
go ahead.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say is that so we have yet to have a plant-based protein source. I mean, we do nuts and almonds and peanut butter, but some of these seitan and I don't know if I said that correctly, sorry, and tofu, I would love to. I think that sort of follows your whole rainbow eating, that possibly getting some of that, not just in your fruits and vegetables, but also in your protein, to mix it up between plant-based and meat-based, because personally, we are primarily meat-based. But I think that's a great thing maybe to do amongst all of these sort of types of foods.
Definitely. That's an excellent point. And the standard American diet is very much meat-based. So trying out these different foods helps out. And some of these plant-based sources help with your fiber intake as well, which is what I kind of wanted to segue into for the next quick little topic. So fiber, the importance of fiber, it's a non-digestible carbohydrate. And I know we hear fiber a lot, and that's another one where you might think, oh, fiber supplements, right, and this and that. But we get fiber through our our fruits, our vegetables, our whole grains, our legumes, our nuts. I just saw someone say lentils, which that's actually a really good protein source, and it's a really good source of fiber as well. So ding, ding, ding on that one. Excellent. So so it's a non-digestible carbohydrate, and consuming adequate amounts of fiber is important for optimal health because it optimizes the function of friendly bacteria in the gut. Also, adequate fiber intake has been linked to reducing risk of development of certain conditions such as heart diseases, diabetes, and constipation as well. And the other big thing I wanted to bring up about protein and fiber is that they both help with satiety. So having protein and fiber at each meal helps to keep you fuller for longer. And I know sometimes right now with so many people working at home and getting bored, we might be moving ourselves to the pantry a little bit more often, right? And I know Tiff is going to get into a little bit more of that, but these foods are great at just keeping us full and keeping our energy kind of balanced throughout the day. So one thing that Tiff likes to talk about is like an energy wave, right? You can think of like a wave or a spike. And so when we eat foods that are, let's say, or we just sometimes eat a meal that is maybe high in like processed carbohydrates. So let's take like a Pop-Tart, for example, not to say that you shouldn't eat Pop-Tarts, but just for this example, let's say you eat a Pop-Tart, you're going to get a big spike of energy, and then it's probably going to go down a little bit. However, if let's say you eat a Pop-Tart with some eggs and an apple, you're going to have protein in that meal, carbohydrates, and fiber, and you're going to get a more sustained amount of energy over time. And that kind of helps to take you through the day. It helps to take you through your next meal. And then you kind of do that again. And so that's where that well-balanced meal comes in. So fiber is really important for that as well. And so just real quick, so the daily intake for women is about 25 grams per day. And an easy way to see that, just look at nutrition labels at different different foods to see how much fiber is in them. And then for men, it's about 38 grams per day. And typically, if you're eating as many fruits and vegetables as Tiff had mentioned, you can get that much throughout the day. I know people might think, oh, that's a ton. And typically the standard American diet, folks only get about 15 grams per day. But if you really do boost your fruit and vegetable intake and your whole grain, legumes and different things like this, you can really boost that intake up pretty easily.
I have a perfect example of that. After reading the resource this morning, we had pancakes and strawberries and blackberries for breakfast this morning, fresh made pancakes. After we finished, I said, Joe, there's this scale. There's this scale about how hungry you are 20 minutes after your meal. The kids were already long gone down by the trampoline. And I said, on the scale, where are you, 0 to 10? And guys, everyone will get this because I thought it was so cool, such a visual. And there was no protein in our breakfast. Normally, we're always bacon and eggs, but today kids picked pancakes, and so we went pancakes and fruit. So we didn't really have that in there. And so then he had like 3 more pancakes because he was still hungry. So I think we missed out on that one.
Yeah. So where were you guys on the scale then?
I was a 5.
I was comfortable, so I think that was a 4 or no 6. I was right, so I was
right
perfectly fine, and I only had 1 coffee. It was great. I want to ask you a couple questions because we're getting them. They're coming in. First one is going to be, Mike, what are the differences on how the body processes meat versus plant protein? Or is it the same? And both, this isn't just to Mike, but I know this is what you were talking about. And how can it affect health long term? So does your body break down meat source versus plant source proteins differently?
So that's a good question. Tiff, did you want to answer that or?
I think, yeah, I think that, like Mike had said, right? Like the main difference is when it comes to metabolism of those protein sources is what comes with it. So we know with more plant-based sources where we have more fiber in there. So naturally, it's just going to take a little longer to break down. But when it comes down to it, the protein really breaks into those essential amino acids, and those amino acids will basically dictate where they go in the body and what they do and how and what functions they'll bring us. So to my knowledge, I don't think there's not a huge difference. It just really depends on what specific nutrients are in those specific plant-based sources and the meat-based sources.
Yeah, definitely. And there's I haven't been in the research on this lately, but I know that some research shows that like eating a ton of meat could provide like a little like inflammatory response. However, I know that that's somewhat conflicting, and some research says it is, some others say it doesn't. But the general consensus amongst health experts is typically that you want to, 1, eat the well-balanced meals, and 2, incorporate plant-based protein in addition to meat-based protein, because typically a lot of people, they typically are very meat-based. And like I said, with plant-based foods, you get that fiber, and having that fiber really helps with the gut microbiome. So if you're just eating a bunch of meat-based protein and you're not eating many plants, you might have a little bit of a bigger or more trouble digesting certain foods. Whereas if you're maintaining a pretty healthy, well-balanced diet with your fruits, your vegetables, your plant-based proteins, and maybe you're eating a little meat as well, you might have a little bit of a more positive digestive process. And like I said, I really haven't been in that research. That's a really good question, but that would be my general statement on that.
Great.
That's a great question. Mm-hmm.
That is a good question. And then there's the 2 similar ones here about basically gluten intolerance. And what I'm looking for more is, let's see, where'd it go? I lost it. Primarily just if where was it? Someone who posted it. Post it again. I'll find it. Or basically, is there any nutritional benefit to eating heavy on gluten? I'm asking if you don't think too much. If you don't have an intolerance. So basically, if you're eating heavy foods that are heavy on gluten, how detrimental can that be, or what is there a nutritional benefit to that gluten? Did I ask that right?
Yeah, yep, that sounds good. Tiff, did you want to answer that or?
Well, I think with gluten, we know that it's in a lot of foods, right? So that's just one thing to consider. We talked a little bit about variety and keeping different foods in our diet and how important that is. And so if you're limiting yourself from gluten, you may be missing out on some nutrients in that sense. But again, I think that a lot of that has to do with how you approach your eating and how picky of an eater you are. If you're someone that finds yourself being able to eat different types of foods and you're not afraid to try different foods, and you're limiting gluten in the diet, then you should be okay for the most part. But as far as like a huge nutritional benefit from eating gluten, like I said, if as long as you include most foods, then you should be fine. So if you're a picky eater and you find yourself limiting gluten, it may be hard to get some micronutrients in for sure.
Yeah, and one thing that I just wanted to quickly say is that if you don't have celiac disease or if you don't have an intolerance to gluten, it's typically pretty safe to consume. And we know that many vegans and vegetarians eat a diet that's very high in gluten because it's so rich in protein. And the other thing too is that gluten-rich foods typically are rich in B vitamins as well, because a lot of our bread supply is fortified with B vitamins.
Oh. Thank you. Awesome. Well, I think a common term I've been hearing is these well-balanced meals and making sure that we are hitting on all those points. So do you want to speak a little to that?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, Mike had spoken about that earlier, keeping a well-balanced plate. And so, what I really like to emphasize, what a well-balanced plate looks like, is hitting as much as everything as you can on one plate. And so, I like to emphasize four food categories. And that's a protein source, keeping an adequate protein source, like Mike had spoken about. Keeping a carbohydrate source in there, so that can be your rice, your pastas, or it can be a starchier vegetable like a potato. And then keeping, maybe if you're able to add in a fat source, that'd be ideal as well. So avocados are great fat sources, and then keeping like a leafy vegetable in there. So like spinach and kale and things like that, or broccoli. So hitting like those 4 points: a protein source, a carb source, a fat source, and a leafy vegetable sums up a well-balanced plate. And so the importance of really keeping a well-balanced plate ensures that you're hitting all those micronutrients that in one sitting. And so a lot of us tend to worry about all the things that, we may be missing out on. And like Mike had spoken about, those nutrients we want to get. But if we try and get as many different, like a variety of different foods with our plates, then we really don't have too much to worry about. Just making sure that, if you're able to, and like, obviously we may not always be able to hit all those 4 categories of food, but ensuring we at least like hit 2 or 3 would be important.
Sounds like a good template to shoot for and kind of have that formula in your head. So whether you're at home or, I know you guys are might be talking about strategies that people can use to set this up and make it easier for themselves. Just having that as a template to guide, or if you're out to eat, making your decisions that way and look for those big things.
Yeah, for sure. And really those amounts, the protein, the carbs, and the fat will look different for each person. We know with, athletes and those who may be training a little more, they probably will demand a little bit more carbs. But, like you had said, the goal is really just to keep a very basic template in the back of your head so you can always kind of refer to it.
I just posted in the comments, because one thing that we have been living and dying by when we do have our pasta, and I want to know what is everybody else's favorite well-balanced meals, because if you ask, that question, if you were on an island, what one food could you eat forever? What are your guys' answers?
If there's a food that I can eat forever?
Yeah, that's the only food you can eat. You're on an island. You have to eat it: breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, dessert, what would
Tacos.
your
Tacos.
What is it? Tacos.
Tacos,
right.
Yes.
Mine is spaghetti and meatballs for sure. What about you, Mike?
That's a good question. I'm thinking about it right now. It can only be one food, or can it be a meal?
It can be a meal, and I'll go into this after. But this is an interesting. Joe, are you start thinking?
I'm gonna go pizza and wings.
Pizza and wings, yeah. Yeah, that's
Mike is big
definitely
into
a good
pizza
one.
and wings.
I'm a huge pizza and wings fan as well, but I don't know if I could eat that every day. So maybe be something along the lines of like, this is very nerdy of me, but like a good protein source, like maybe like chicken or like I said, seitan, and then definitely a potato, because potatoes are just an excellent source of carbs and potassium and other nutrients. And then definitely like a green leafy vegetable. I'm a big fan of like spinach, kale, like different things like that. Broccoli, love that.
See, you have to go that way. I can, you couldn't go pizza and wings. There's no
Right.
way you could have said pizza and wings. So
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
a good answer.
I had a point to all of this because in our like adult years, our spaghetti and meatballs now is actually a whole green pepper, a whole thing of spinach that I actually pour it in the boiling water. Right at the very end of it, I put the whole
Right.
thing of spinach in the boiling water and then I dump it both in. So we have those big things of spinach. And then we do the hot Italian sausage. So we typically jam it up. It's more like a pasta primavera. And similar to our frozen pizza Fridays, any leftover vegetable that's still in the refrigerator from the whole week, because we do this on Fridays, we will put it on top of the pizza. So I think like your tacos, Tiff, you could still make super nutritious with all four parts, part of the meal. The chicken wings, Joe, I don't think we can, you can eat the celery with it, but I think if you still have some of those staple meals, there's ways to still make it well balanced by not just having 2 to 3 servings of pasta, still have 1 serving with broccoli and spinach and
Yes.
peppers.
Mm-hmm.
And we love the hot Italian sausage too.
And that's a great point. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Thinking about different ways to add those fruits and vegetables in. And that's a really creative way, in that way, if you're adding, thinking about the vegetables you have at the end of the week, you're reducing food waste. And so that's really important. You're saving money in that sense and you're saving the environment and you're getting more veggies in. So it's a triple whammy.
Definitely. And I love that you said you just kind of like put the spinach in at the end, right? When it comes to cooking vegetables, it doesn't need to be sexy, right? As long as you can cook them quick and eat them. One of my favorite things to do is I like to keep a stock of the frozen steamable vegetables in the bag, so that if, let's say I'm feeling a little bit lazy, pop that out, throw it in the the microwave for 5 minutes or whatever, take it out and maybe put a little garlic on there, right? A little garlic salt, and just eat it like that.
These are so great. And some of everybody like pad thai. I know that there's different veggies that come with that. Corey, start putting some veggies on that pizza. I'm sure you already do, but even lasagna, because lasagna are ways that you have some people make it mainly dairy, but there's ways to put meat in that and peppers, right? Mm-hmm. Peanut butter and jelly bar, we're going to have to work to, but she does add tomatoes to her mac and cheese. But anyway, because then you're not only eating just the one portion of it. So these are all great things.
Yeah, tomatoes to mac and cheese is great. Even I like to do carrots to mac and cheese as well. Yeah. That's kind of a fun way too. If you have kids who don't like to eat veggies, sometimes you can do a little stealth health, as I like to call it, where you kind of put things here and there, right? Like maybe some black bean brownies or this and that, or maybe a little broccoli here and there and some mac and cheese.
And kind of makes it fun, right? Especially for kids, because carrots really add that textural component to it. So it makes it fun to eat. It's not just all, just one texture. It's a good way to explore veggies for kids, for sure.
Stealth health.
Stealth health.
I'm going to throw you under the bus about your Hormel chili that goes right into the mac and cheese.
No, you don't have to bring that up. You don't have to bring that up. Not now. No.
I'll tell you what, we are a huge fan of the vegetarian Hormel chili, because you can use that in different dishes, like, here and there, moderation, of course. But
see, Aaron, it's approved.
I thought it was a great idea to get protein into it. All right, we've got two other questions here. I know we still have some other topics, but these are great. If you are injured and low activity level, which of the 4 categories should be your focus for weight loss and overall health?
I think that's a great question for Mike, actually.
So the question was injured and low activity level, correct?
Right. Yep. Just coming back from an injury, and if you still want a well-balanced meal.
Sure. So your priority is definitely going to be protein. So when you have an injury, your protein needs typically increase a bit. So maybe just adding, like I said, at each meal, like between 2 to 4 ounces. Maybe at each meal you do 3 to 4 ounces instead, and maybe you have a nice protein-rich snack in between. Protein-rich snacks that I like, beef jerky or types of jerky, like hard-boiled eggs.
Greek yogurt.
Greek yogurt is a really good one. Milk. These are cheese sticks. Any other plant-based snacks that you can think of, protein-rich?
I love roasted beans.
Yes.
So you can usually find those in the health food, like the health section, but roasted beans are great. Peas, things like that. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Like soybeans, so edamame, like dried edamame is really good. Pumpkin seeds are very rich in protein, super rich in protein actually. And then of course like peanut butter. But so yeah, your priority would be protein. And then you would also, definitely fruits and veggies, because getting in an adequate amount of your vitamins and minerals. So like we said, maybe 2 to 3 servings of your fruit, maybe even a little bit lower on the fruit, 1 to 3 depending, and then more veggies, because if you're not as active, you don't necessarily need as many carbs. Now you don't have to be low carb, but carbs are a primary source of energy. So if you're very low activity, you won't need as many to do your day-to-day lifestyle. And actually, Tiff posted a really, really good post or blog on her website, which is tiffanymardn.com, all about energy balance. So if you're interested in energy balance and how to kind of figure out your energy needs, definitely check out that article.
Yeah, great.
Awesome. Thank you. I can't wait to share all of your information to everybody, because I know that this is super powerful stuff, because a lot of what else are we in control of right now? It's ourselves and how we make ourselves feel, where our minds are at, what we're intaking. So I think that we know we can control at least this portion of how we're eating, keeping ourselves healthy and nourished. So thank you guys. We got more questions. You have a time limit? Because
we're having fun. I'm here in the middle of Manhattan quarantine, so.
Yeah. If you guys don't know, Mike was left about a week and a half ago, was it? Mm-hmm. A week and a half ago, to go down and basically be an RD for patients who are recovering from COVID or who have
COVID. They had COVID, yep.
At the Javits Center. So he is working right on the front lines. And so we appreciate that, but thank you for being here for that. So the next question here is there evidence the microwave diminishes nutritional value?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it would depend on the food, right? And I think that we spoke about fruits and vegetables and how they're very nutrient dense and have all these great micronutrients. What we do want to be mindful of is how we cook them, right? And so when we cook them in certain ways, they can lose some of their nutrients. So if they're, and I think the same does go for meat sources as well. So, you're thinking about overly cooking these foods. When you're thinking about vegetables, if you're roasting them or charring them to the point where they can become blackened, they may lose some of that nutrients. And I think the same goes for meats. Yep. So just one thing to keep in mind is just don't overcook any of your foods.
Yeah, one of my least favorite way to cook vegetables is by boiling them. So when you boil vegetables, you'll see that there's a lot, like let's say broccoli, right? There's a leftover green water, and a lot of the nutrients get what we call leached out of the broccoli and into the water. So some people actually drink that water. I wouldn't recommend doing that if it's boiling, but one of the better ways to cook vegetables is by steaming, because, you steam it, or blanching, which, you pop it in boiling water for about a minute and then this is kind of difficult, but then you put it into your colander and cool it down really quick. But just like Tiff said, ways to cook without like leaching out the nutrients. And if you burn foods, you're kind of same thing. Yeah. With meats, if you're really burning meats on the grill, then you're burning the protein out basically.
Yeah. And so the losses aren't like so significant, but they're just something to be more mindful of, especially if that's just like your one method of cooking. So if you're just microwaving your vegetables, you just want to be more mindful and just like, watch out and make sure that you're not overcooking them. And like like Mike had said, you can usually tell if you're overcooking them when they lose that color and kind of look a little paler. So if like, I tend to think of like broccoli, because I feel like broccoli is a vegetable that can be overly cooked easily. But when it starts to turn like pale, and kind of like limpy.
Yeah, and mushy.
Yeah, mushy.
Yeah, you want it to stay crisp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Al dente. It's gotta be.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. So let's move on, because we've talked a lot about foods. I think that obviously hydration is another huge part into our overall nutrition, and that's so why don't we we do still have some questions, but definitely we'll get back to those. So what we hear that all the time, am I supposed to drink as many ounces as I am old, or 8 glasses of 8 ounces? So please clear the air.
Sure, definitely. Yeah, I can touch on this a little, and then maybe Tiff can add her 2 cents as well. But so, staying hydrated is really, really important. And I know that during this time, especially for people who are working at home, it can be easy to forget to drink, right? We're just kind of sitting around, maybe working on the computer, whatever it might be. But so 60% of our body is made up of water. That's approximate. For some people it's more, for some less. But basically it plays a big role in keeping our bodily systems working well. So staying hydrated can help reduce your risk of developing kidney stones or urinary tract infections, also constipation. It also helps your mind to stay sharp, right? I don't know if you've ever kind of felt dehydrated and you feel like lethargic, or maybe even like a little like just confused and tired. That's a big part of that. And another thing, which is great for, PTs and fitness and all that, is that it helps to keep our joints lubricated and cushioned. So when we're maintaining proper hydration, that's a big benefit as well. So, the kryptonite to hydration is, of course, dehydration. And dehydration is when your fluid intake just does not match how much you're excreting. So through urine or through your sweat. And when you become dehydrated, some signs might include that you have a dry mouth, or you have dry skin, or like we said, fatigue, muscle weakness, decreased urine output, dizziness, and even a headache. So those are some signs of dehydration. And this kind of sounds funny, but a simple urine color check is a really easy way to assess your hydration. So you really want to aim for like a pale yellow or a clear. Now, if you're constantly urinating and it's clear all the time, that could be a sign of overhydration. So, but if it's just maybe a couple times a day, that pretty much means that you're well hydrated. Or if it's pale yellow, that's also well hydrated as well, or just hydrated as well. When it starts to become bright yellow or even like dark yellow or orange, that's when you're in like a mild, moderate, and if it's really dark, that's kind of a severe dehydration. So a very easy way to check that. And you can Google charts just to see what the colors look like. So you might have heard that the general recommendation for fluid intake is around 8 cups per day. So that would be 8-ounce cups per day. Now that's actually a little bit low. So, and that would also be 64 ounces. Now, the general consensus for women is actually about 9 cups per day. So 9 8-ounce cups. And for those who drink Poland Spring water bottles, that would be about 4.5 Poland Spring water bottles. And for men, it's typically about 12.5 8-ounce cups per day. So that's about 6.5 Poland Spring water bottles. And when we talk about hydration, we're not just talking about drinking water. It's really whatever you're drinking for the most part. So if you're drinking, and typically we preach, low calorie drinks, because you don't want to drink too many of your calories through fluids. But, if you're drinking like a tea, or lower caffeine beverages are okay. If you're drinking, your cup of coffee, I typically tell people, don't count that towards your fluid intake, because caffeine is a little bit of a dehydrator, but usually the amount of fluid that comes with the coffee, let's say it's a coffee, it kind of balances itself out, so it doesn't really matter. The only thing you really wouldn't count would be alcohol, because alcohol it typically does dehydrate you. So those are just some typical recommendations: 9 cups per day of fluid for women and 12.5 for men. Tiff, do you have any other recommendations on the hydration?
Yeah, I think you covered the recommended amounts. But I think that, what would be really helpful to talk about, like, is how you can just increase your hydration needs. And so I think that that's like a question I get really often, right? Like, oh, I go through the end of the day and I just forgot to drink any water. And that initial dehydration thought, right? When you have that feeling of being dehydrated, unfortunately, you're already dehydrated. So that kind of like symptom comes last. So I just have like a couple of tips on how you can stay more hydrated throughout the day. And kind of like what I was talking about earlier, start in the beginning of the day. I find it really, really helpful if you're someone that finds it hard to stay hydrated, to have a glass of water by your bedside or have it ready to drink in the morning. So kind of having it on the kitchen counter or by your bedside is just like a reminder, because you visually see the glass of water and then, you know, you're more likely to drink it. And then making water fun, right? So I love to drink out of my hydro flask. It keeps it really cool. And I like drinking out of a straw. It just makes it easy because if I'm like walking or like I'm doing anything else, playing with the cat, I can just hold on to the water bottle and drink it. So it makes it fun and easy for me. And some people just naturally just don't like to drink water. You know, I had a friend who she just didn't like the taste of water, and that's fine. But some ways that you can flavor your water would make it really fun. So like including fruits in there, like lemons, you can do berries, and things like that would make it fun to drink water and increase your hydration throughout the day.
Yeah, definitely. And just an example of that, I have these waters that we were given actually for volunteering at the Javits Center. And this one is, I've never seen these before, but this one has mint and cucumber in there. So it's 0 calories, but it was infused with cucumber and lemon. And so that anyone can really do that. You can find on Amazon or probably even like Walmart or Target, like an infuser where you can maybe put different like fruits or vegetables or, you know, mince, things like that into water, and it kind of leaches out the flavor. And then you have a nice calorie-free or low-calorie drink.
I love what you said, Tiffany, too, about, you know, trying to find activities that you're already doing and then set yourself up to set these little reminders up. We talked about kind of the Atomic Habits book in a previous episode, and just kind of leveraging the habits that we already have and just piggybacking those with some of these new habits. I thought that was super awesome, the glass of water in the morning.
Yeah, that's great. And that's actually something that I reference in the resource guide. I have like an example of a woman, and it's just like a little case study, but it's a woman who wants to also increase her hydration needs. But she goes through the day and she realizes she hasn't drinking any water. But she really likes to drink coffee, and she'll have about like 2 to 3 cups a day. So in order to make water drinking a habit, she combined the 2 habits. So she combined her coffee drinking and her water drinking. So every single time she took a sip of coffee, she took a sip of water. And then she made, thus making water drinking a habit. So we love
awesome.
habits here.
Coffee and water.
I feel like we get it in our head. You know, it's like, I have to cut this out and replace it with this. But if you just piggyback one with the other, that gets the ball rolling in the right direction. I think that's super smart.
For sure.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm glad you brought that up, Joe, because I was listening to your motivation and habits last week. And I wanted to mention that hydration, nutrition is can be complicated, right? To kind of like try and do all these things at once that we're talking about. But hydration is one thing that's super, super easy to start to get on track. And just by, like Tiffany said, getting a reusable water bottle. We really like the hydro flasks or even like the Camelbacks. And we also really like the water bottles that come with like a little straw, because it's just typically easier to just drink like that versus like constantly like twisting off. But and just having that with you, so that's like a little small habit that you can start, and before you know it, that compounds, and you're drinking, those 9 cups or 12.5 cups per day, and you don't have to try and just drink that much at first, right? You can start small, and maybe you say, okay, I'm going to try 3 extra cups today. And then the next week you say, I'm going to try 4 extra cups. And then the next week, and then because it takes some time to build those habits. And then I know that you had that little graph last week, and where you come up on top, it's kind of like the peak of the iceberg, right? There's so much more on the bottom when you're hiking up, but once you get to the top, that's where you get all the glory. So those little habits really help, those small little things. Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome.
awesome. And I think, I want to give what it's, what the space that it needs. And I know that the next thing is being mindful about what we're eating. And I'm going to drop right now in the comment section a link for all of you guys to sort of read this amazing resource tool. It really breaks down a lot of what Mike and Tiffany are talking about. And you can, once you sort of click on that link there, and you just put your name in and it'll come over to you. This is what I read today from literally, I don't know, 10 to 10:45. It was just a really great way to put everything together, to break down your balanced meal plan, to also, and Tiff, you talk about what else is in there. Some of the other things I took over, I'm a visual learner, and to be able to have some of those graphs and some of those goals lists, give us a little bit, maybe this sort of fits into being mindful about your nutrition.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, the resource I made was aimed to kind of just give some relief to everybody during this time. We have so many things going on, like Erin had said. It's nice to feel like we're in control of something, and everyone, for most of us, if we're working from home, we may feel a little out of control, especially when it comes to our foods. And there's so much gray area when it comes to nutrition. So I really wanted to make the guide to answer any of those questions and give relief to anybody that's just feeling a little bit uneasy. But there's a lot of great tips in there. I talk about everything from how to optimize your grocery trips, so how to save some more time, shopping at the store, and how to be safe, during this time. All the way to talking about how you can be more mindful with your eating. So a lot of us are eating at home right now and probably dealing with so many other things. So just kind of bringing a mindful practice to our eating. And it's also organized to include some very like basic level tips that you can kind of just like take away. So like I have some like very basic ways you can learn how to cook. So if any of you are curious or want to get in the kitchen more, I have just like different spices that you can use to spice up your foods and different cooking methods, because there's not one way, or it's not a one size approach when it comes to cooking. There's so many layers. So I just have some basic tips like that. And like Erin had mentioned, I have a bunch of activities and lists that you can use to kind of follow through with it, just to keep you interacted. So you can kind of like print those out and fill those out on your own. But I think it's a great resource, because I spent a lot of time making it, but like I was trying my best to include, there's so much to talk about. Like, we're going over an hour, we're still, so engaged. And, but yeah, I think you guys will all really like it. I think it'll be really resourceful. And if you enjoy it, please let me know. I love to hear from you guys. And if you find it helpful, please forward it to your family and your friends. That would mean so much to me. And I hope they can gain something from it.
Yeah, we are so glad that everybody can sort of look at that and sort of hopefully can get it and read it. But yeah, thank you so much. Now, is there anything else we should be mindful of? There is so much content. I know, and there's still lots of questions that we didn't really get to. But what else should we be thinking of, or what haven't we touched base on yet?
Sure. Yeah. So I touched base a little bit about how you can be more mindful with your food. And so why I think that's so important is because when we become more mindful with our eating, we just become more mindful overall, right? And we think about how fast paced our lives are. Even without, like you had said, we thought that we would slow down with quarantine, right? But you're probably thinking about all the other things that you realize that you had to do. So if we can be a little bit more mindful when it comes to our eating, it's a really, really great way to just, implement or have some more peace throughout our day. And so mindful eating is what it basically means is just having less distractions or limited distractions when we're eating. And why that's important is because it really helps us pay attention to what's actually in front of us and what we're eating. So it helps us taste our foods better and whatnot. But it also helps us pay attention to our environment a little bit. So, just being a little more like self-aware about what's going on. And the whole goal is to, be able to center yourselves, and doing so will help you digest a little better. And so I think a lot of us tend to gravitate just eating a meal that's, and we're a bit distracted. We like to be on our phones, and we like to scroll through our phones. We like to check our inboxes, even though we may not be getting any important mail. And so we like to do that a lot with our eating. And oftentimes, we forget how our food tastes, or like, 5 minutes goes by and we've eaten our entire meal, and we realize we really haven't even paid attention to it. So taking that time to really take a step back and implement some simple cues will really help you bring some mindfulness into your eating. And so some of the simple tips I have is, number one, limiting those distractions. So if you can have a moment to yourself and just, set some time apart to have a meal in solitude, that's great. It may not be so realistic for those with kids, right? But if it's something that you can do at least once a day, that would be fantastic. That's a great place to start. Some other tips I have is, being mindful of the amount of chews that you're eating, you're taking. So with rougher foods like protein sources and like vegetables, we may be chewing a little more. So maybe there's around like 30 bites, but with softer foods, like potatoes and rice, maybe like 20 bites. And so it sounds kind of silly, like thinking about chewing your foods and counting it. But when you actually do this, you're just being more cognizant of the food and, in hand, just being more mindful. Another great tip is to put down your utensil when you're eating. And so I think that a lot of us tend to, we'll take one bite and we automatically go for the second bite. But, if you have the time, slowing down your eating by putting your utensil down and really thinking about chewing that bite would be really, really helpful to bring into, bring more mindfulness in. And then the last tip I have is trying to eat at a pace with somebody that may be more of a slower eater. So Erin and Joe, is one of you a faster eater or a slower eater? Or kind of the same?
I feel like I'm faster. I don't know. I feel like every meal, Dominic, look, everything that you're saying right now is like hitting home because I'm the person that I just like sit down at lunch and I've got a podcast going. I'm trying to read a book and catch up on emails because I feel like this is my time. But yet we talk about like everyone just needing to slow down. And then at dinner time, the last 3 meals, Dominic looks over and he's like, "Are you done already? Did you?" And I'm like, so this is perfect for me. I don't know, Erin, what do you think? I feel like I'm a pretty fast eater.
Yes, you are. I think it's, this makes me think of my stepdad. He's like, in the army, we had 10 minutes to eat. You get it done, and I was like, you'd be done before it even sat down. I don't think you're as quick as that, Joe. But I think the distractions are there. I know when I do come in the office, Joe has the door closed, but he has his earphones in. He's looking at the screen and he's probably emailing on his hand and chewing. Like there's a lot going on there, but yeah. I think I'm a sort of, I don't think I'm a fast or a slow eater.
Okay. So you know what? I think that's a great opportunity for both of you to kind of see if you can complement each other. So like if you're having, think about your next meal. And Joe, if you're eating so quickly, maybe you can try and slow down and catch up to Erin's pace. And like doing so, allows you to enjoy the full meal with her, but allows you to be more present with your food. And it's so important to just, I understand. I'm very much the same way. I'm the same as you, Joe. Like I like to do so many things at once. I'm a huge multitasker, but Mike is actually the slower eater. And so over time, I've really been able to complement his pace with mine. And I feel so much better when I slow down with my eating, right? I feel fuller at the end of the day. I'm not thinking about food right after I eat because I was so present and like present with my meal and thinking about what I was eating that I was like fully captivated. So it really helps to tie in mindfulness and it helps in so many aspects.
That's huge. We talk about the role of the sympathetic nervous system and this fight or flight response, and we're just on the go. And this, I never really thought about food that way, but it's another way we talk about needing to slow down in order to speed up. Like if you can slow down during this time, it can affect so many other things positively for the rest of the day. And so, yeah, I've got homework. I'm excited this week.
For sure. Yeah. That's awesome to hear.
Well, we'll have to task my stepdad too. That is going to be fun. We have a question here from Sam. She's saying she's literally addicted to water, not working right now, but drinking more water at home. Is there a reminder to consume more water while working? Do you have any tips or trades of maybe ways to incorporate that more into your day? I know we talked about maybe like adding it with your coffee, like if you have your coffee, have your water, but any other tips that you have? And maybe it doesn't just go with water. Maybe it's also to, one question that hasn't come up yet is about small meals in between or small snacks in between big meals, but maybe it's the same type of reminders.
Yeah, Mike, do you want to go ahead and take this one or?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, just like anytime, really the way I look at it, like trying to drink throughout the day. So anytime that you are eating a big meal, try to drink some water, a cup of water, or just a cup of like a lower calorie drink with that. And then like Aaron just said, if you're doing in between meal snacks, also drinking with that. So those could be 2 reminders. Like we had mentioned before, having your like having a water bottle and trying to keep a water bottle by your desk and being mindful of how full it is, right? So maybe if it starts to dwindle down to being less than half full, or 25% full, you can go quickly get up and fill it up again, so that you kind of always have something around you. The other thing too is that there are some really good apps that are specific to hydration, free apps that you can get definitely on iPhone, but probably on Android as well. And some apps will just remind you, right, if you set the reminders to drink. So sometimes that's a really easy way, because if we're getting really locked into our work or a project at home, it's very easy to forget to drink. So if we have like a little quick ding or whatever it is, a very easy way to remember how to drink there.
Yeah, I think there's a great app that allows you to grow a plant every single time you like hit your hydration goals, and so you kind of have that like incentive
Whoa.
to drink more water. So yeah, I think I don't know what the name of the app is, but maybe I'll try and see if I can find the name, and I'll send it over to you guys.
Yeah, and then the other quick thing too is that in terms of proper hydration, we don't just get water and fluid from drinks, we get it from foods too. So eating foods that are a little bit more heavy in water, right? So things like watermelon, cucumbers, bell peppers, lots of different fruits and vegetables are loaded with water as well. So you can get your water in that way too, by eating some foods that are a little bit higher in water content.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
That's awesome. Guys, any other, I know we hit on all of our bullet points. I don't want to keep you guys much longer. There's definitely some other comments. And if you guys get, when we get off this, you'll have access like just on our Facebook page, and feel free to get back to some of these ones. Who's your favorite cooking chef on TV? Do you guys follow someone who you'd say, yeah, watch Gordon Ramsay? Watch somebody. Who's your person? Who would you like? Do you value, their cooking skills or advice?
I love the Great British Baking Show.
Oh, yeah, really?
So not like a specific person, but yeah, I like baking. I like cooking, but yeah, something about the show and their accents.
I've never seen that one. Right now, our kids are into Master Chef Junior. They're like loving what these little kids are making, which I'm envious. But that's cool. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm a little edgy, but I'm a big Anthony Bourdain fan.
Okay.
I know he's not alive anymore, but he still have a lot of his shows around. So, and that's not necessarily like for like healthy cooking, but like does great tips. And what I really like about his show is that he goes all over the world and he talks about different cultures and different foods. So it can really open your mind to different types of foods, different ways to cook foods, and just being more mindful about the way other cultures eat in the world.
Yeah, he's
so great. Joe, anything coming for you? I'll wrap up after, but is there anything else you want to sort of bring up or ask while we have these experts with us?
No, just thank you. I love your approach to this. One of the quotes I pulled out of the guide was, I think it was, be stubborn about your system, but be flexible with your goals. And I think, that's awesome. Like how you guys talked about goals and habits and just an understanding and almost like a template. I think that's super helpful for people. And I appreciate your approach to it. So thank you for sharing with everybody.
Awesome. I'm so glad that message resonated with you. We're living in different times. This is very difficult for a lot of us. And, we may be so used to a certain regimen. And it feels like our world's kind of turned upside down. But when we, take a step back and really look at what we can do in the time being, that's a really great place to start. And flexibility is the name of the game. If we can be that flexible and adaptable, then, this serves us well for the rest of our lives.
It's awesome.
Mike, any last comments, Mike?
She just summed it up very, very well. So I would also say that I think that in Tiffany's ebook, she does have a little page that has like a meal template. right? Does it have a
Yeah.
plate? Yeah, so that's another great way to kind of visualize the way that a plate should look. And sometimes you might think, well, I don't always eat a meal that's on a plate, right? Sometimes I might eat soup, or I might have a taco or whatever, but those concepts kind of still apply of trying to, once you kind of read what she has on there, half of that might be a fruit or a veggie, and then a little protein and a small amount of carbs. So all about that well-balanced eating. And my other thing is that, there are no healthy foods and bad foods. All foods can fit. So for everyone, you can always fit certain foods as long as you do it strategically. So
For sure.
Stealth health.
Self-help, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Sneak stuff in there.
Absolutely, so many take homes today. I mean, we always say strives, or choose to be 1% better every day, and even just taking some of these tips, reading that resource, reading that ebook, learning something new. I know for us, the rainbow eating, that stuck home with me. Making sure we feel that we do introduce colorful foods, but maybe being a little bit more plant-based, just being a little bit more mindful of that this week. You guys truly are experts in your field. Hopefully, all of our community who are watching start following their Instagram pages, look up their website. I posted it below. Oops, yeah, it's almost, there we go. Sorry, I forgot to get the website in, but it's been throughout this all. I'll re-tag everything, but you guys just have such a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate you coming so much and sort of giving back to our community.
Awesome.
Definitely. Thank you for
so
having
much
us.
for having us. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
Yes. Have a great week. We will see you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Good night.
Good night.
Oh, you'll have to text Tiff to come back.
Okay, that's what I figured. We could stay on, and it's not live anymore, right?
No, we're off.
Okay, let's see. Come back.
You're sure it's off air?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah, mine's still flashing live.
Oh, that's okay. Well, now we'll go. Bye, everybody. Like Valerie, is that a family member?
Yeah, my sister. Yep.
Oh, hi, Valerie.
Tristan was watching, who's my nephew too. So hello, Tristan.
Oh,
I saw
awesome.
that.
All right. Bye, everybody. Hey, Barb. Thanks.